There is a debt market that is now bigger than entire national economies. But most people have never heard of it. It does not trade on a public screen. It does not get priced every second like the stock market. And if investors get nervous and ask for their money back, some funds can basically say, yes, your money is there, but you can't have most of it right now. That is the strange world of private credit. And in this video, I'm going to show you how banks pulled back from risky lending, how Wall Street built a shadow lending machine to replace them, why regulators are suddenly worried, and how a market most people can't even see could still freeze credit for real businesses, real workers, and the real economy. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Daniel Reed, and this is Plain Econ, the channel where we make economics simple without the jargon. We break down inflation, interest rates, debt, markets, central banks, and the global economy in a way that actually makes sense. So if you want to understand the forces shaping your money, your job, your country, and the world around you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Plain Econ. Now, let's get into it. After the 2008 financial crisis, the basic story was supposed to be simple. Banks took too much risk. Regulators tightened the rules. Banks became safer. Problem solved. But finance almost never works like that. When you squeeze risk in one place, it often moves somewhere else. And one of the biggest places it moved was private credit. Private credit is basically lending done outside the traditional banking system. Instead of a company going to a bank for a loan, it borrows from a private credit fund, an asset manager, a business development company, or another non-bank lender. That sounds boring, but boring is exactly where the dangerous stuff can hide. Because this market has grown into something enormous. The Financial Stability Board estimates global private credit at around 1.5 to $2 trillion. The Federal Reserve says private credit loans in the United States are around $1.4 trillion, roughly 10% of U.S. non-financial corporate debt. That means this is not a tiny niche for Wall Street insiders anymore. This is now a major part of how companies borrow money. And the most important question is not, is private credit bad? The real question is, what happens when a market built on patience suddenly needs cash? To understand why this market exploded, imagine you run a company. Maybe not Apple, maybe not Microsoft, maybe a mid-sized software company, a healthcare company, a manufacturer, or a business owned by private equity. You need money. A bank looks at your debt, your cash flow, your risk, and says, this is not the kind of loan we want on our balance sheet. But a private credit fund says, we can do it. The loan can be faster, more flexible, more customized, maybe more expensive, but available. For the borrower, that is useful. For investors, private credit also sounds attractive. They are told they can earn higher yields than traditional bonds, with less public market volatility. And that last phrase is doing a lot of work. Less volatility does not always mean less risk. Sometimes it just means nobody is marking the price every day. If you own a stock and bad news comes out, the price falls immediately. If you own a public bond, the market can reprice it quickly. But private credit loans are private. They are not traded constantly. They are often valued using models, estimates, and internal assumptions. So the market can look calm for a long time. Not necessarily because nothing is wrong, but because the price discovery is delayed. And that is where the first hidden danger appears. In public markets, pain shows up fast. In private markets, pain can wait backstage. Now, defenders of private credit will say, that is actually the point. These funds are often designed to hold loans for years. They do not need to panic sell. They can work directly with borrowers. They can renegotiate. They can be patient capital. And that is partly true. Private credit may be more stable than a public market in some situations because investors are locked in. But here is the twist. Wall Street has been trying to make some private credit products feel more liquid, more accessible, more available to wealthy individuals, financial advisors, and eventually more ordinary investors. And when you take illiquid loans and put them inside products that offer periodic withdrawals, you create a very specific tension. The assets are slow. The investors can be fast. That is why the phrase "can't cash out" matters. Many of these funds have redemption limits. For example, some can cap withdrawals at around 5% of net asset value per quarter. So if a few people want out, fine. But if a lot of people want out at the same time, the exit door gets very small. This is not exactly a bank run, because these funds are not promising instant cash like a bank account. But psychologically, it can rhyme with a bank run. People ask for money. The fund limits withdrawals. The headlines get worse. More people ask for money. And suddenly, a product that was sold as calm and stable starts revealing that the calm depended on everyone not leaving at once. In the first quarter of 2026, the Fed noted that redemption requests rose sharply in some semi-liquid private credit vehicles, and many managers capped withdrawals. The Fed also said the risks looked limited and manageable, and that part matters. This is not a video saying, tomorrow morning the economy collapses because of private credit. The more interesting point is subtler. The system may be designed to prevent a sudden crash, but that same design can create a slow freeze. And a slow freeze can still hurt. Because if private credit funds face withdrawals, weaker sentiment, and more pressure from investors, they may not have to dump every loan immediately, but they can stop making new loans. They can tighten terms. They can demand more protection. They can refuse to refinance weak borrowers. And that is where Wall Street plumbing becomes Main Street reality. A company that expected to refinance its debt cannot refinance. A private equity-owned business that was rolling loans forward suddenly has to cut costs. A software company already under pressure from AI automation loses access to easy credit. A healthcare roll-up cannot keep buying clinics. A retailer cannot fund expansion. And then the financial story becomes a human story. Hiring slows, layoffs rise, suppliers get paid late, investment gets delayed. That is how a hidden debt market can freeze parts of the real economy without ever creating one dramatic Lehman-style moment. And here's the second twist. Banks are not as removed from this story as people think. The simple story is that banks stopped making some risky loans, so private credit replaced them. But the deeper story is that banks are still connected. Private credit funds often use bank credit lines. Banks lend to the funds. Banks provide liquidity. Banks may have exposure to the same ecosystem through asset managers, insurers, private equity firms, and borrowers. So risk did not just leave the banking system. Some of it moved around the banking system, wrapped itself in different contracts, and came back through the side door. That is why regulators care. Not because every private credit loan is toxic, but because the map is hard to read. The FSB has warned about valuation opacity, leverage, liquidity mismatches, bank links, insurer links, private equity links, and data gaps. Translated into plain English, regulators are saying, This thing is big, connected, hard to price, and not fully tested in a serious downturn. That combination is what makes financial authorities nervous. And it should make normal people curious, because the real danger in finance often comes from the thing everyone believes is under control until it is tested. Before 2008, mortgage risk was supposedly dispersed. Before the 2020 market panic, treasury markets was supposedly the deepest and safest in the world. Before the UK gilt crisis, pension strategies was supposedly boring and liability matched. The pattern is not that everything is the same crisis. The pattern is that modern finance keeps creating structures that work beautifully in normal conditions, then behave strangely when everybody wants liquidity at the same time. Private credit might be one more version of that pattern. And if you're finding this useful, hit the like button, because it helps YouTube understand that people actually want clear explanations of these hidden financial systems. And subscribe to Plain Econ if you want more videos like this without the Wall Street jargon. Now let's talk about the most underrated word in this entire story: private. Private sounds sophisticated. Private sounds exclusive. Private sounds stable. But private also means less visible. In public markets, everyone can see the panic. In private markets, the panic can happen through meetings, emails, valuation committees, delayed redemptions, amended loan terms, and quiet restructuring talks. A borrower might not officially default. Instead, the loan gets modified. A company might not pay interest in cash. Instead, the interest gets added to the loan balance, which is called payment in kind. A fund might not mark a loan down aggressively, because there is no public market screaming the price. None of these things automatically mean fraud or disaster, but they can delay recognition, and delayed recognition is powerful. It allows everyone to say the losses are manageable, until suddenly the question becomes, manageable at what price? If a borrower cannot pay interest in cash, but the loan is still treated as performing because the interest is being added to the debt, is that strength, or is it a timer? If investors are told they have quarterly liquidity, but the fund can cap withdrawals, is that liquidity, or is it liquidity with an asterisk? If banks are not directly making the riskiest loans, but they are financing the funds that make them, is the banking system safer, or just harder to understand? That is the unique angle here. Private credit is not scary because it is obviously collapsing. It is scary because it is built to avoid looking like it is collapsing. The whole system is designed to smooth the visible volatility. And smoothing visible volatility can be useful. But it can also make people underestimate the hidden pressure. Think of it like a bridge with no traffic camera. The bridge may be fine, but if trucks keep getting heavier, cracks are hard to inspect, and the exits are narrow. You do not wait until the bridge falls to ask better questions. You ask before rush hour. So what should normal people watch? Not the daily price, because there often isn't one. Watch redemption requests. Watch whether funds keep capping withdrawals. Watch private equity defaults and restructurings. Watch payment in kind interest. Watch whether banks pull back from lending to non-bank financial institutions. Watch whether credit availability dries up for lower-rated companies. And watch employment in industries that borrowed heavily when money was cheap. Because the chain is simple, higher rates make debt harder to carry. Weak borrowers need refinancing. Private credit funds become more cautious. Lenders demand better terms. Some companies cannot roll the debt. And when companies cannot roll the debt, they do not just hurt investors. they cut spending, they cut hiring, they cut jobs. That is the part that matters outside Wall Street. Private credit is often presented as an investment product, but at scale, it becomes part of the economy's oxygen system. When credit flows, companies breathe. When credit freezes, even healthy companies start conserving cash. The final point is this. The problem is not that private credit exists. There are real benefits. It can fund companies banks will not serve. It can provide flexible capital. It can diversify lending away from the banking system. The problem is pretending that moving credit outside banks makes the risk disappear. It does not disappear. It changes shape. It becomes harder to see. It moves from deposit runs to redemption gates, from public prices to model valuations, from bank loans to fund credit lines, from obvious panic to slow-motion tightening. And that is why this market deserves attention. Because the next financial stress may not begin with a giant bank failing on live television. It may begin with a quiet message from a fund saying, "Withdrawals are limited this quarter," and then another, and then another. And then companies that depended on that lending machine discover the machine still exists, but it is no longer willing to lend. That is what a credit freeze looks like before most people know it has started. So when you hear private credit, do not think of it as some distant Wall Street product for rich investors. Think of it as a shadow version of the lending system, a system that helped replace banks, a system that grew because money was cheap, a system that now has to prove it can survive when money is expensive, investors are nervous, and everyone remembers that cash is only cash if you can actually get it. That is the hidden debt market that could freeze the economy. And if this video helped you understand something that usually gets buried in financial jargon, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Plain Econ, and share it with someone who wants to understand what is really happening beneath the surface of the economy.